Welcome everybody to Campfire Talks, where we gather around the campfire and we just discuss anything D&D related. We are joined here with some lovely homies tonight. We got Robert, we got Scorch, and of course we
Yep.
have the lovely EQ homies who are currently muted right now. We got Izzy, Sierra. We just got good company tonight. And after what that 5th episode of the campaign goes, there was definitely a lot of discussion with theorizing, and it got me to think, and here we are. And honestly, I can't stop thinking about the fact that y'all are theorizing this much about the last portion, which by the time you actually, I will make sure I will upload that episode before uploading this, so that way it actually does coincide. But yeah, we're already 5 episodes in. I don't know, like, how I still managed to capture y'all's attention, but here we are. We're just now getting to probably the most climactic portion of this arc, even though it just started, but I don't know. It's a lot going throughout my mind, and I kind of want to hear what y'all been thinking, what some of y'all's theories are. Scorch? I mean, like... I don't even know where to begin. I mean, the theories...
Representing the active players. I'm still holding tight to my theory.
You're still holding tight. Could you explain that theory?
Yes. So, at the end of our session, we discovered that kind of laboratory under the safe house.
Yeah.
Safe house that only Emily and Varys are supposed to know about. As far as we know.
Yep.
And we found equipment down there to making that would be used in making the perfect automaton, as well as vials that, from what we could tell, held the souls of Emily and Kali, Alvarez's daughter.
Oh yeah.
So my theory is that since the tavern, the Emily that we've been walking around with was not actually her. This is in some way that she's been. I think it is her body, but that her body has been replaced with someone else's soul, and her soul held within that vial. And that this is supported by the finding of the laboratory, which is not, which seems to be very like
recently built.
Yeah, recently placed inside of this long-existing safe house. The fact that there are very strange letters that seemed very out of character for what Emily, or for what Varys told us Emily would be like, and what a few impressions we get of her. And maybe the most damning piece, that Emily is Emily, quote, is the only person who seems to have escaped the explosion, while all other members all other people who were supposed to be her allies, including Donnie, died in that. And we saw her escape, and we know that her body wasn't there because Varys found her body. There's a bit of misremembering with something that happened with what seemed like a changeling in some way. I think that Emily's body is being possessed by a changeling soul, and this was done with the doll makers and White Lotus in like working together. And that would also explain why Denise was in the safe house, when Denise is, by all accounts, a villain, or at least a villainous figure in our story, whether he was being controlled or manipulated in some way. Why he would have been in the safe house that only Donnie and Emily and their associates should have known about.
Hey, you know what? I applaud you for even coming up with a theory like that, because, so, to be fully honest, when I actually initially created this campaign, like, Robert, Scorch, are y'all familiar with Kingdom Hearts to a certain extent?
Title?
The title? Okay.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay. Alright. Well, hey, thank goodness you all heard of it. So, there's also a thing about Kingdom Hearts 2 where it deals with, like, people's souls, and I wanted to I wanted to work on that concept for a bit, because, you know, for me, the idea of messing with the the concept of a person you can essentially walk by a person, but they're not fully the person that they are meant to be. And I really wanted to test that out in this campaign. And if I'm being honest, I was really scared of doing it, because I knew that it would take down so many like walls of reality, and then we're just immediately going into like this fictional concept of like the person that you were interacting with might not be like the full being. And so, if I'm being truly honest, this is actually one of the most nerve-wracking arcs that I'm working with. But what is continuously making me motivated is the fact that y'all are so into it, you know. And Scorch, Izzy, Sierra, y'all can attest to this, but y'all heard us like theorize this not even just immediately after the campaign, but the days incoming, where y'all were still talking about this, you know. And with the introduction of the newest NPC, Manchester Wyatt, and having potential connections to Kiva, Shadow's character, it's just going to snowball into one enormous thing. And I think that's what's really going to be like the biggest thing, is there going to be sustenance, or is there going to be like actually finishing the story per se with all of this. And you know, I'm just glad that y'all are sticking to it, and the fact that y'all are that into it is just immaculate. What I also couldn't help but think about was the dynamics of the characters. We have very unique personalities in this campaign, and I think one of the biggest challenges is making sure that I split my time evenly with all of you, so that way y'all can still continue your stories with each session. And I don't know, like, I don't like if y'all like have feedback. I've always said like you're more than welcome to share that with me, but have you felt like your characters have like kind of gone through feel like they're making progress in their own merits, or do you feel like there's like a part where it feels almost stagnant?
I think we're progressing. I don't know. I have a very clear vision, or maybe not that, but I have a lot of like ideas for where I would want to carry Druken's story and his growth. A lot of those being I don't think they're things that I would be able to do in your campaign. I think it's something like down the line, if I ever get into DMing, it's something that I would have to do at like in control of it myself, like, and just seeing those things through. But no, I think I'm fitting well into the world with Druken.
It's definitely one of the bigger challenges with this group, but you know, it's also giving me more opportunities to think of creative ways to progress the story. You know,
Right.
It's not just the campaign itself, but I always like to think of each campaign that I go through as if it's a movie. And
Right.
when you give attention to certain characters and you make sure that it's evenly balanced, not one character is going to feel like they're forgettable. And that's not just to the players, but that's also towards the NPC, which, actually, speaking about NPCs, we've had quite a few memorable names.
Yeah.
Quite a few of them are well known from the FSOD era of my time campaigning.
Just dead.
And yeah, Donovan Damien, also known as Donnie for short, if
RP
DD would
Donnie.
like to keep it real short. Rest in peace. Or maybe not. Or maybe not. We will see. But yeah, there's definitely a lot to uncover. And Robert, I know like you haven't been able to come into the campaign due to like the fact that we're taking place on the days where you're not available to do so, and I do apologize about that. But
all good.
but I do want to hear from like, because you, even though you haven't been part of the sessions directly, like we've made sure to
Mhm.
like kind of fill you in about all of this, especially with like the last two episodes of where this is going. And I don't know, I kind of want to hear your thoughts about just like the theorizing and just overall. What are some things that are going throughout your mind, or maybe I'm just speaking into the ether.
I mean, obviously, I don't know everything that's going on. You guys have kind of just hit, when recapping for me, you've hit the important parts that impact Varys directly, since Varys is my NPC.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I can tell, at least from like the theorizing, the interesting theories that I'm hearing, that this Emily that the party met isn't the real Emily. It's definitely some interesting theories, considering that um, when this Emily was in danger, Varys knew immediately, and that this Emily carried
That's a
the
good point.
pendant that directly links to Varys. It is a pendant that Varys and Emily made together to alert each other if the other one is in danger, and that it
Exactly.
allows communication between each other. So, for this Emily to have that pendant, if it wasn't the real Emily, is concerning from Varys's point of view.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But
Definitely.
it gives enough faith into Varys, at least, that this would be the real Varys.
Right.
Or at least the body of the real Varys, the body of the real Emily, which Varys would still want to protect, even if Emily's soul is not
Absolutely.
currently in it.
Yeah.
It really does like make it a rather. This is definitely the most dramatic and the most suspenseful of arcs that I've done in a hot minute, and there's definitely some topics I don't wish to do a balance beam on for obvious reasons, because those are sensitive topics. But the sheer response that we collectively have gotten, because a lot of my friends from outside this Discord and a lot of my friends IRL have been listening in, and kind of feels like in one particular person's word, it feels like a straight up novella for like a Spanish drama, and I could not stop thinking about that when I listened back. I was like, oh dang, like we should like do like an
I feel
anime
like a lot of that
outro.
came from the roll for pie.
The roll for pie. We will. It is not.
I'd rather never eat pie again than have to roll that 90 whatever I got
Oh
to
yeah,
get that roll.
one of the
It was horrid.
one of the more humorous what ifs. What if you actually what if actually Druken gave in and actually proposed to to the daughter?
I don't know. I truly don't know.
What
Druken
if
is a very young and like new to the open world kind of person,
Mhm.
and just like something like that. I mean, Druken's 20 in this, so
Yeah.
like he is. So part of what I've written his backstory is that he grew up in in his father's general store. His father being human, and his father loved magic. A very just a simple wizard, though not very very talented in his own right. And so he grew up reading a lot of the magical books that his father collected.
Yeah.
And his journey of wanting to find out is that his mother wasn't around, and his father never really said much about her. So he after finding some books that were talking, or that were written about the magical connections to the different races, he discovered that or more about himself, and that he was descended from dark elves, and that means that's what his mother was, and wanting to find out more about that, as well as the source of his own magical power. So I think getting married with that in
It would
mind at
it would
20
certainly be it would
is
certainly
kind
be
of throwing a wrench into the
topsy
whole
turvy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
journey.
Uh-huh.
It's not something I
Oh,
ever
yeah.
would have thought I'd have to react to.
But to be, and I really do appreciate that you took, and that's something that I really do appreciate about, from a DM's perspective, is when people take time to do their backstories, and even just
Oh, yeah.
hearing it now, Scorch, like, I was invested into it. Like, that genuinely motivated me to be like, okay, like, there's a story, there's concrete foundation into
Oh,
your
yeah.
character. It's not just like randomly thrown together like an NPC that I would like implement every now and then, like, ja buddy. But yeah, it's compelling, and I've definitely been in some campaigns that I've done that were like short, where people did not think too much about those, and I could work with those, but it's
Yeah.
very limited. But when a person actually devotes their time to very much flesh out
I'm giving
a
you
character,
a lot to work with. I'm giving you substance that you can then build off of.
It's
in your own
substance, right. Exactly. It's substance.
No, I wanted to do a much like so. Druken was not the first character I made after, or not my second character ever, but he is. I think he was my fourth actual character.
Really? Okay.
And I feel So I started with the Dragonborn fighter,
Mhm.
and his story was fairly basic, I think. In that, like, his village is attacked when he's young, and he goes and survives as he was taught to, and just living in the forest, and he's very secluded and like socially awkward, and is like trying to get out of that. It's a very simple story, and I kind of, in trying to be true to that character in the campaign I played him in, really did not contribute to RP nearly as much as what I should have, both for the sake of the game and for my own experience, especially since it was my first campaign. But I wanted to be able to have characters that had depth initially, and had like could go a long way, and like could have like the best chance of having these really major experiences throughout the different campaigns that I would probably play them through, especially one like this that has so many moving parts and so much backstory and even post story, apparently, based on the time on the setting of this campaign. So like, I feel like Druken was the best choice for this.
Oh,
and I'm really hoping that if I do have to bring another character in, I can still have that kind of serious impact on it. Whether that means I murder everyone or not, it doesn't,
Oh yeah. I will say, and I'm gonna be very honest with you, there is a part of me that's doing everything I can to keep Druken in the campaign, but I'm like, no, I have to make sure.
No, dude, don't hold back. Go, like, make it,
Yeah,
like, keep it balanced. If it's my time to go, it's my time.
And that's
It'll
the thing.
suck, but like, I'm having a blast, and I'm honestly still torn about what character I would bring in. I know I've said I've decided on the warlock so many times, but I have a warlock waiting to go. I have a life cleric waiting to go, and I have a monk waiting to go. And all three, I don't really have much of a backstory yet for the monk, but I really like the stories I've made for the other two, the warlock and the cleric, and I really would like to see where they go.
Right.
And I also just want to like have more experience playing characters. So don't pull your punches. If it's Druken's time, it's his time.
I'm definitely gonna keep that in mind for sure.
If I weasel my way out of it, then
Yeah, I mean, hey, like, that's
swing harder.
Swing harder. I will definitely keep that in mind. Because
I mean, there was a comment in one of the first two sessions, like, look who the two doing the most damage are. It's the sorcerers. Like,
yeah,
our party could use a lot more balance, and I think, and obviously the only way to do that is to kill some of us off.
There is purpose behind, like, just having a character's presence, because it's not just the dynamics, but it's also what people are capable of in terms of their actions. Robert knows this firsthand, how important a team dynamic is, both in RP and in combat perspective.
Oh,
I mean,
100%.
like we definitely have some stories to share about FSOD. You know, like let's do a little bit of a throwback to some of
All right.
like the encounters. Let's start with like the pyramids. Let's start with the pyramid that y'all encountered when y'all were in the first town that y'all started out in.
Oh, the beginning in FSOD.
The beginning in FSOD, you were.
Yeah, that was session 1 or session 2.
It was session one. It was sessions 1 to 3 where y'all
Yeah.
were setting your adventures and kind of like y'all were kind of like getting familiar with one another, and you were in a town where it was controlled by a. It was basically like what was it? It's a parliament. So it was controlled by sages who were different beings of intellectual wisdom.
Let me pull up my notes. I didn't realize we were going into FSOD. Let me pull up my FSOD notes.
I wasn't either. I was gonna talk about like team dynamics, but then like it immediately motivated me to go back.
Rob said something I was thinking about the other day. I was like, man, I might have to get like a binder to really organize my notes if I end up doing more campaigns with you.
Goodness, like
if they're all in like the same like universe, I might have to get binders and folders because I'm definitely not getting rid of these notes. And I'm honestly feeling like I might fill up this notebook. Because I've already got in our 5 sessions.
Yeah.
I've taken. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.5. That's front and back of notes.
That's awesome, and that
in
honestly
5 sessions.
That makes me so happy. The fact that like people are invested to where they're taking notes about this. Like y'all already knew that I was like intertwining universes and stuff, but it's another thing when a person actually takes the time to actually look into it. Obviously,
yeah,
I will say this
too. It's
good
to hear that you're taking notes. That way,
100%.
We can reference stuff later.
The amount of notes, from first session, I had a half-page of notes, and I'm probably not the most diligent note taker. But from first to second session, that went from a half a page of notes to a whole page and a half of notes after that, and every session has been at least that since. A page or 2 of notes.
It's actually crazy. You were in the town of Drummer.
We were in Drummer, yeah.
We were in Drummer, and I don't know specifically of like the enemies that y'all fought, but I remember Nerm's character and Varys's character was actually pretty prevalent during that combat encounter. Unfortunately, it sucks that I don't know like off the top of my head, and even as I'm like folding through, but
what we were fighting?
Yeah, what we were fighting. I think it was bandits at the time.
Yeah, I think it was. I didn't take notes of what enemies we really faced in the areas. My notes were mostly important locations and important characters.
Oh yeah,
Came along.
Yep, drama.
Like you've seen my note sheet, the way I took notes for FSOD. It's literally just like, all right, here's a person we met. Here's what they look like. Here's what they did for us.
Yeah.
See, I'm not even doing that. I'm like, I'm making note of the interactions and things that seem important. But like, I have so little detail about people specifically.
Yeah. So in FSOD, I took note of what people looked like specifically because there'd be times where we'd see someone in passing and he would go into detail about what they looked like.
Right. So you were keeping note of it in case it was somebody important you would forget. Yeah.
Right. So I made note. I wouldn't put a name in. I'd put a question mark and the description that he gave us, and then once we figured out who it was later, I'd go back and I'd add the name in.
Right.
But their name was always the first place we saw them. It wasn't every time we met them, but it was always in the first place we saw them.
Right. Like as in the town?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when we were in Drummer, like everyone that we met for the first time in Drummer, their name appeared in Drummer. So like, I don't know, there was someone who had to have been someone from Drummer who was prevalent multiple times.
The one key thing that I took away from it was y'all went to a tavern that had a basement. That's where y'all got a hold
Hammer.
the Black Hammer, and that's where y'all got a hold of Schwinn, which held
Right.
which held the BBEG for the campaign. So it was
Yeah.
literally y'all bought the capsule that held your final boss from the very start of the campaign. And I was like, oh, like we're getting
You
somewhere.
are your own worst
Oh,
enemy.
that was a vial that we bought? Oh. Right. Because I know Schwinn wound up in Uvigen's battle axe.
Yes, there was a point where a battle actually took place to where Schwinn and Uvigen's battle axe actually fused together
Right.
after meeting up with a false Andromi. What was it? It was a fallen Azamar that they encountered. And oh my goodness, Scorch, like the amount of imaginative creativity that went into that campaign in like the first 5 or some sessions, it was such a clear indicator that like that campaign was going to be plastered as being one of the more chaotic beings that I have created for my own mind. And
Right.
and it's not just, and the fact that most of this imagination comes from like movie references or even studying psychology of human behavior. I don't
Yeah.
and that's just me, but I like listening and getting things from like movie references and anime stuff because I can't help it.
Definitely.
I'm a sucker for tropes. But what's also key is also psychology. It's also about keeping note of how people react to certain things, and I'm like, okay, you were surprised at that? Interesting. Let's see if you're surprised at this. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, Robert, FSOD was truly the start of me getting into the depths of just how far I can go with storytelling.
Oh yeah, like there was definitely some good storytelling in your previous campaigns.
Yes, A Hero's
remember-
Wish.
A Hero's Wish. Between that one, hang on, where did the list of the order of the campaign? That was in muted chat, wasn't it?
It was in muted chat.
Damn it. All right.
Yeah, I mean we could
I'm gonna
definitely
have
pin
to
it.
Yeah, as soon as I find it, I'm gonna pin it.
But
but-
has there been like moments where like people were confused? Absolutely. I'm not gonna hit it on the mark every single time and justifiably. And I think what I really appreciated about team dynamics, not only in FSOD but also in Emerald Quill, is that y'all correct me, and we're able to like reestablish, and we're able to reset, and we're able to continue, and that's really something that I appreciate from both groups during that time, because especially when it comes to calculating damage or making sure that I'm on top of it with like proficiency checks and adding on to certain things, especially with spells, is
I
definitely
mean, we've
one
even
of
had
the...
some of that.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate it when we are able to discover the problem and fix it and then be able to get back on track. There's definitely been times where I've been with groups where we've discovered a mistake, but instead of like fixing it initially and getting back into it, there's people that just rat on those that make a mistake, which I will never understand because that's so immature for a game that's supposed to be incredibly fun. But it's something that I can take away from both groups. Like, y'all
Like hold each other
pretty
to like accountable, but like there's no reason to like ruin someone's time in the campaign over that.
I know, and D&D is already such a great catalyst for meeting different people and getting to see what others are capable of in terms of like storytelling. So it just makes me more excited whenever I get to hear people thinking about getting into D&D and like people needing to scratch that itch. So it always gets me hype for stuff like that. But speaking of hype, it's about that time, gentlemen. Can you roll me 2 d20s, please, each?
D20s?
Yep, raw d20s. You're not adding anything to it, just rolling 2 d20s.
That's a 12 and a 15.
12 and a 15.
That was a heavy book.
Don't worry about it.
If this is, affecting the campaign I'm in, I'm absolutely gonna worry about it.
No.
Yeah, that wasn't convincing.
Alright, you got a
I put
6
mine in
and a
the,
19, 12
Yep.
and a 15, and the last thing I want from the both of you is to roll me a D100.
100. The full 100, not just the
That's the
percent
wrong
die,
one.
right?
Yep.
76.
94.
Very interesting numbers, gentlemen. I will definitely keep those in mind for the end of the episode.
Oh, dear Lord.
So, that was a little bit of an immersion break to kind of give a little bit of a refresher. But we've been talking about like team dynamics. Then we kind of got into like the impact of D&D for a little bit. But one thing that really does stand out to me is what seems to be a lot of people's like deal breaker is not just the combat perspective, but it's essentially just talking about the impact of combat that it has on characters afterwards. Now, I completely get that for magic users, y'all expend your slots. You definitely feel more vulnerable when you don't have the slots available.
I've been trying to be much more wary of that after the first session because I was just throwing them out. And I mean, I did a lot of great with it, but that's a little concerning when you're on especially when you start looking at the sorcery point table of how to recover spell slots.
Oh yeah,
That's not a very forgiving table.
it's not.
And once you look at it after you're already running low, you're like, ew.
Yeah,
I
now
may have made a
just
mistake.
imagine playing clerics.
Oh, what do you mean?
So in the Minutemen trilogy, I played 2 clerics at the same
Yeah.
time. It was twin clerics. Imagine if both of your clerics run out of spell slots in the middle
I'm
of
terrified of
battle. Yeah, there's not much you can do. I mean, you
No.
can switch off to your sword and shield or your mace and shield, whatever you have, but you're not a paladin.
It's something I've thought about too, is like how difficult it must be to play other magic classes. Like seeing as how my only one has been sorcerer, because I have the sorcery points in my back pocket if I really need them.
Right.
Granted, if I'm using a lot of high level spell slots, they're not going to get me too far, but it's still better than having nothing. And especially being the first magic user I made after him was a warlock, and then learning
Oh,
about what
yeah.
warlocks are like for spell casting, and I was like, huh, that's
Yeah.
terrifying. I definitely
mean-
see why a lot of people multi-class into sorcerer from warlock
Yep,
because of that,
yep,
Mm.
yep.
and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm kind of wishing I had realized that before I finalized the character, but
Mm.
Eldritch Blast never fails.
But I think that,
Right?
but I think that also
Yeah.
offers like an opportunity for you to be creative and being efficient with your abilities too.
Yeah, see, I've given that a lot more thought of with the warlock, like like a lot of the spells that I've talked about having with him, of using Hunger of Hadar and stuff like that. Like just play like I'm gonna have to be way more reserved around those things, and I think that gives me a lot of opportunity to embellish the casting and just like have more fun with it, and in like an RP sense,
Mm-hmm. That's completely full. Yeah, that's fair.
It's something I'm worried about, but I hope I'll be okay.
I think you're gonna be fine. I think it's just your level of awareness after like the first 2 episodes where you're like, oh shoot, like I heard that in your voice when you were like when we were commentating back and forth. I'm like, this guy's thinking good, because if he didn't, imagine what you would have been like against that battle with Denise.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, because I had been so I took the spell Storm Sphere on our level up specifically because I'm like, I'm gonna need something. I'm gonna need a game changer right now.
Yeah.
So what's the best option? And nothing in 5th level seemed great, in the sense of I'm needing to use lightning magic, because there just weren't options for that.
Right.
And hell, the next lightning spell I'm gonna get is chain lightning, unless I go back and grab chromatic. But that's different. Like there's so few options for it. but I don't. I wanted to have something that would be useful in more than just combat, and like, and it was like. And like it was more useful in combat and like a diverse kind of combat in that like I'm affecting how they're fighting us, not just beating the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Because none of them were like they're all stuck. So I feel like that was a better idea than me just like changing gears and going for something that's just to just maximize damage.
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel like I did not look into sorcerer enough before I chose a lot of the things that I did, whether it's my spells or like I'm like how I've decided I'm going to progress with him.
That's fair.
Yeah, you definitely get a good realization of how to build a character after you attempt to play a character once.
Yeah,
Like,
and keeping that in mind,
Varys
I
is a
think I've
great
made better
example of that.
choices with my cleric and warlock because of that than I did with the sorcerer.
Yeah, Varys is a great example of that. I mean, Varys did not turn out at all how I had planned Varys to turn out, but that is just because of the play group that was there and the dynamic that needed to be filled in the party.
Yeah.
Because going into that, the session 1, I knew that the party consisted of Varys, who was a druid ranger. We had Uvagin, who was a barbarian. We had we had Nurm, who was a wizard, and we had Gekun, who was a monk.
Yep.
So going in, I'm like, okay, so we've got our frontline damage, we've got our backline damage or crowd control, we've got
a melee fighter.
Right, we've got our melee, and then Varys can just kind of be the support. And then once we kind of got into our first combat encounter, I realized that the team dynamic I thought we had was not accurate to the way people were playing their characters.
Yeah.
So we had our frontline tank, and then we had a backline crowd control.
Yeah.
And who I thought was going to be our melee damage was actually a pacifist, so did jack all in combat, which made Varys have to come out of this support role to a mixed support damage role, and that is very tough, especially since I'm multi-class druid ranger, which was a bad idea to begin with.
Yeah.
So I really didn't have that option to try to get damage and support. I kind of had to pick. So the party is looking at Varys like, you need to save us, we're all dying. And I'm like, y'all needed damage. Like, we need to win the fight. So I went a path to be able to kill things. So
I think the route I've chosen in like characters I'm playing is really good for that. And like because I've gone from a dragonborn fighter to a half-elf sorcerer to I don't know what yet. So I feel like I'm getting a good spectrum of how things can change. Depending on the class and how people are playing their characters, regardless of what they're supposed to be like. As like, and I'm looking at that way because I'm still very new to the whole thing. I mean, this is my second campaign still, so I'm learning to be more conscious of that as I'm making decisions and learning about the characters, and because of that, I'm trying to slow down on just making characters that seem fun, without backstory, without an idea of what they're going to be like, or what I even want them to be like.
And I appreciate that. I think if anything, the sheer uniqueness behind the way that I set my campaigns up, Robert, you could disagree with me on this, if anything, but I feel like the playstyle that is being presented in this campaign kind of allows you to think more within your character than just having it as just a character in a tabletop game.
Oh yeah, definitely the uniqueness in some of I mean, especially this campaign. I think I've heard that you're doing unique things in combat. I think you've got a unique homebrew rule, if I'm not mistaken, this time around for combat.
Yes.
So there's definitely that the characters kind of have to keep in mind once they kind of know how that works. They're gonna have to keep that in mind.
Oh yeah.
With like the character interactions, that's a very unique thing going on there, and definitely the storytelling.
Yeah.
So,
because one of the features that I wish to implement is blood loss and like physical injury.
See, I'm honestly surprised there isn't more of that in D&D.
See,
because it's such a great idea.
See, and that's the thing, because there's like exhaustion levels, which I think is already like, pretty good. But like you have to think about what characters actually go through, especially when someone's like singed. Now we're dealing with like different degrees of like burns applied to the skin for different races or for like flexibility. Like, can you imagine if someone got shot with like an arrow in the arm, but your main weapon is a bow and you somehow have to use that? Like,
yeah,
of course
you're rolling at disadvantage.
You're rolling with disadvantage.
You're completely incapable of doing anything.
Exactly, and then we discuss like melee damage. Like, if you all of a sudden like got like blood that's coming out of you, well, now out of combat, there's now exhaustion level, but now there's blood loss. So now, now medicine checks and survival checks now plays a more significant role, like in this than just being like, oh, like let's diagnose this. Like
you should do that. You should try that in not this current campaign because I think it'll fucking kill us.
No.
In seconds.
No,
it's already implemented
for this campaign,
oh, God,
dude.
Really?
Yes.
Oh God.
And you want to know something?
This is what I meant.
Yeah.
So, but another interesting thing, on that kind of path, noting game rules and stuff, is there's a lot of spells that specify, this spell doesn't return lost limbs, or that kind of thing in a lot of like the cleric and paladin spells. But it's interesting to note that there isn't really a ruling for how characters or NPCs can lose limbs.
Right.
It's almost like it would be a post-mortem removal of the limbs for these spells to have an effect or to not function properly.
It's those, and that's just the thing. It's the small things that people are going to remember too. So like, like, oh, like your character's like traveling, okay, blood loss, how they look, how they feel, and especially how they look, because there's definitely going to be times or scenarios where like you're going to probably attend a cordial thing. Do you really think the NPCs are going to accept you when you haven't healed from those injuries and you have bruises and a black eye, maybe some cuts?
Imagine if that had been implemented in FSOD when the party had to dress formal attire to attend basically court. We basically had to go to court.
What did you do?
Oh, we didn't do anything. Do we want to
call for jury duty?
Do we want to kind of do we want to call for like a little bit of like a long story short kind of thing? Because this is actually interesting because I involved almost like this political style episode to kind of like test the waters, like see like if they're actually gonna, because it's something that I've always been curious about, because we have societies, there's going to be cultures, and there's also going to be government systems. How can I make that relevant towards the D&D campaign to now make them think more on the aspects of like, oh, this isn't just a game. This is like a real life simulator if we were put into it and it was fleshed out.
Yeah.
And it failed so miserably.
Well, yeah, because at that point, like, we had gone through so much combat, and as a party, there wasn't much role play that had happened. Basically, the party would only come together whenever there was combat. A lot of in that campaign, a lot of the storytelling and a lot of the RP came specifically from one character, maybe a little bit from a second character, but a lot of it was primarily focused around one character.
And I do blame
Um,
myself for like kind of going along with it instead of like trying to put it back on track. I definitely have
right.
myself to blame for a good part of that.
But
You do,
we
but
learned
it's
from
as much the
that.
player's fault for doing those kinds of things too.
Yeah, it was. I more so blame that player
Oh no, if
than
one person's at
anything.
fault for that, 100%, no, blame them.
It was.
It's not your fault,
I
Pink.
more so blame the player then. But yes, you did have a part in that, Pink.
Yeah.
But it was a learning experience because I know in the first couple sessions, at least the ones that I spectated, I don't know if it's continued. After the session, you're very adamant about checking with the players and making sure that you kind of hit everyone equally and that everyone is being involved in the
Right.
role play and
Yeah.
bouncing between characters constantly, which seems like you've taken what you learned from FSOD and the flaws that were there and really focused on them to fix it for the Emerald Quill.
Oh, you
Oh,
have
absolutely.
no idea.
I will say I had very high expectations of this from Pink because I know he's really experienced. I had a lot of build up, like hearing people, like you, Rob, and other
Mhm.
people that have been a part of his past campaigns of just like how fun they were and how much there was to them. And
It
I have not been
really
disappointed
just
at all.
me. I think I'm
Yeah.
the only one who's actually been a player in your past campaigns, but
Has an egg?
Egg was a spectator
Oh.
And Dusk,
in
he was a guest
and Dusk,
NPC for the
right?
very end.
Yeah, and Dusk was a spectator and guest NPC.
Yeah.
But both of those were only for FSOD. So the Minutemen
Right.
Trilogy and A Hero's Wish were on campus campaigns that we ran. So the only people who are even in this group that would know of those is Pink and myself.
Gotcha.
And I don't, and that's the thing. I didn't want to really say like all this stuff because I think it's more impactful if you heard it from the people that's actually experienced it than me talking about
Right.
myself. Because then it just comes off like I'm just being prideful of my work instead of having
Exactly.
someone else hear from it. So it did really make me happy when like you spoke highly, I guess, of that, and I hope I was able to meet your expectations, Scorch.
Oh,
so far.
100%. With no
Um,
question. No, I'm very, very glad to be a part of this.
I'm glad. I'm
I
really
don't-
happy.
Oh, that is interesting. That my eyes just landed on the line in my notes. I wasn't even. I looked back over at my notes, and my eyes landed directly on the line that we were just talking about that the societal thing where we basically had to go to court and dress all fancy.
Yeah. And see, but
Where
that
we had received a note that we needed to go to a town or a realm, Enra, by noon that day, or we would forfeit the entire realm to a group called the Holy Trinity.
Right.
At the time, we were basically kind of in charge of at least one realm.
You were.
We had already taken out like the high leaders and like claimed ourselves as the new leaders of the realm, or like I don't even know how to put it because we weren't physically there as leaders, but we were the top of the food chain there, and we had appointed people to run the government in our place.
Yeah.
And since we weren't there, this other group had moved in and was like, nah, we're taking over.
I think not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we basically had to dress formal and show up to this and be like, no, we're here, y'all ain't, leave.
Oh yeah, with all
So,
your
I mean,
battle scars and your blood.
right. So could you imagine if we had showed up burnt, like partly burnt or deformed from the battles that we had just been enduring the day previous, or days, multiple days previous.
It's insane. It's oh, like there's so many what ifs that went through my mind when implementing like these new systems into EQ, and I'm just like, man, that episode D group would be so screwed on so many levels.
Oh yeah, we really would have been.
Y'all would have been thrown in prison. Y'all would have been tortured
I mean, we already were thrown in prison once, at least once.
by a dirt bomb.
Yep.
That was great.
But it's fine because we found some good characters in there.
Yeah, you did. That's still one of the biggest what ifs. What if y'all were able to get that dirt bomb away from y'all?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if that had happened, we wouldn't have ever adopted Emily and Brandy.
Yep.
And that would have caused that we wouldn't have gone through some of the character development that we did. Between Uvigin and Varys, the character development that happened caring for those children and protecting them.
Oh yeah. Just there's just a lot there's a lot of what ifs, but that will definitely be covered in another podcast episode because there's definitely a lot more that we could talk about. But I think if anything, I think if y'all, so I know Denise, so we're going back to Denise just for a little bit, and since y'all
Leave him in the ground.
and since y'all killed him successfully, might I add, would you like to know 3 of his most powerful spells he had in his arsenal that he could have used against y'all?
I really want to know, what class was Denise?
He was a paladin.
Oh Lord.
Oh god, and he got killed by an Oathbreaker paladin? I love that irony.
He was a paladin.
I love that.
Oh, goodness. So he had...
So, he was level 17, yes?
yes.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right, we needed you. But we
As
did
well,
just fine.
Pink had decided to move the date of the session, so Varys wasn't able to show up rocking their level 19
Yeah, there is something I want to say about
stomp.
that I realized a couple days before our last session,
Yeah.
and a bunch of other people realized in the midst of our last session, was the dagger that Donnie had that could have been used as a way to combat the magic. You have that. Varys has that.
Varys has that?
So, yeah,
Varys has it.
he gave it to Varys, so none of us have it to utilize in any way. So we're completely screwed on that front. That's a very big part of it that we did not think about at the time.
Gotcha. See,
Yeah.
I would say in the moment that if Varys was knowingly going off to do other stuff, that she would have handed it off to another player. But I don't know which character Varys would trust enough to hand off an item like that.
Exactly.
So,
It's something that we realized that a lot of us have realized this past week, and I feel like it might bite us, but hopefully.
But also remember, Pink, I've given you full permission to use Varys however you need. You have a copy of their character sheet.
Yes. Yes.
So if they need to return to the party, you have full reign to do that.
I definitely will keep that in mind for sure, Ski. But
yeah, you have full reign over Varys and Teddy.
Mm-hmm.
So
one of his spells that he had on him was Raise Dead. You return a dead creature that you touch to life, provided that it has been dead no longer than 10 days. If the creature's soul is both willing and at liberty to rejoin the body, the creature returns to life at 1 hit point.
And there are no limitations to the creature itself. Like what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a creature, meaning you could bring back like this gigantic, just dragon or something,
Yep.
and absolutely roll us.
Now,
That's a problem.
now, what I will say is that I also purposefully disintegrated Denise because of some of the components that he had on him, which would have been very, very useful to the group.
He's a villain.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't say a villain, but I won't
No, you.
divulge.
The DM is the villain.
Yes.
What? Me? A villain? Anyways, moving on. Temple of the Gods.
That doesn't sound good.
You cause a temple to shimmer into existence on ground you can see within range. The temple must fit within an unoccupied cube with space up to 120 feet. The temple remains until the spell ends. By the way, the casting time is an hour, duration 24 hours. It is dedicated to whatever god, pantheon, or philosophy is represented by the holy symbol used in the casting.
Oh. Oh.
I might have to pick that up for 1 block. That would be really great for a Temple of Baal.
And then the last one that he had was... He had Holy Weapon. It's a bonus action. Concentration up to 1 hour. You imbue a weapon you touch with holy power. Until the spell ends, the weapon emits bright light in a 30-foot radius and dim light for an additional 30 feet. In addition, weapon attacks made with it deals an extra 2d8 radiant damage on hit.
So you're basically making Excalibur whenever you want.
Yep. As a bonus action on your turn, you can
Sick.
dismiss the spell. You can dismiss the spell and cause the weapon to emit a burst of radiance. Each creature within your choice within 30 feet of the weapon must make a con saving throw. On a failed save, creature must take 4d8 radiant damage and is blinded for 1 minute.
If there were
Blinded
guilt
for
about killing
1
Denise, it
minute.
would be gone.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no guilt. Fuck Denise. Get murdered.
But I created
It's
and
fine, 'cause-
yeah.
I mean, it's fine that the party killed them, because Varys absolutely would have wrecked him.
Disintegrated
Would have
them
would have
too.
taken
Yeah.
initiative.
Yeah, even though Varys themselves would have remembered the consequences of the area, but I, at the time, did not, until Egg reminded me later, like, hey, you remember where we're at, right? And I'm
Yeah,
just
dude,
like,
yeah.
oh,
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
No, Pig, when you brought that up about the bell in session 4, I was like, oh my god, we're standing on a mass grave. I thought it was over. I was honestly expecting you to turn, like, if all or like as the skeletons started to go, I was kind of expecting you to make this just massive skeleton as they break, they all start collecting together. We have to fight this gigantic skeleton.
Yeah.
And I was horrified of
Yeah, but that was the wrong colored belt.
it.
Uh-huh.
It was a gold
Yeah.
one. Y'all didn't find the other one.
Have our other friends from this area shown themselves, or are they still around?
One showed up in a form of a banshee.
Oh, one, yeah, no, I knew about him.
Yeah.
I meant the other friends that we encountered here.
No.
Okay.
No.
Are they still around in this area, or?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah.
They just haven't shown themselves.
What I will say is that although they haven't showed up, what has showed up, unfortunately, is a bunch of elves from the Feywild showing up
I heard
dead
about that as well.
in piles of corpses from portals.
Yeah, I heard about that as well.
Yep.
I can't remember her name. The
Rabbit
rabbit folk.
Your general,
concerned.
yeah. Luna Whitestone is
Right.
concerned because the army that you led that was no longer tended to by Luna has been defeated in the Feywild. So now the court is now
That's just gonna piss Varys off more.
They were
Varys
more
is
than
gonna
defeated,
come
they
for
were
Luna's head at this
slaughtered.
point.
It's just there's so much that could be thrown about even after y'all like track down this ethereal being that's been summoned from the sky to try to claim Alvarez, which y'all were very adamant about not having that happen. So
Oh no, oh yeah, that was, I really enjoyed that. That Lexi and I were on top of that with counterspell and dispel. We were not losing our only tank. As soon as he goes down, we're fucked.
we're all
Okay.
going down. But it goes to show like you can't. I have to be on my toes. Like I couldn't just like have like a powerful being just being in front. Not when y'all were that desperate to not let him go.
Yeah, all of us tried to attack.
Mm-hmm. There's so much
Fireball, flying axe.
There's so much to unravel, and what makes it even better, and what I'm really glad I started implementing, was the fact that I've also teased y'all about a bit of a preview for the next episode by putting in the actual episode title in the main chat.
Yeah.
And so I do kind of want to dive into a little bit into the next episode title, and I kind of want to hear your thoughts about this. Episode 6, A Father's Sacrifice.
Yeah. I think this is either where where you are writing in that Alvarez is being killed, or this is entirely a reveal about Kiva's background. And I don't know which one I'm hoping for.
And
because
I think
both of them are probably something really bad.
And I think
for us.
and I think that's like the best. I hate saying this because you literally just said really bad, but I think that's the best thing actually.
Yeah,
You
like
don't-
it absolutely is. Like of one of them, like even though it's gonna be something really bad for us, like it's gonna be it's gonna cause major problems for the party. It is still the best option because it's adding so much strife and suspense, and just like
I make you think
Yeah.
about it. But
See, well,
And honestly-
I could also see this going for Akiva, and I kind of think that's the direction it's going. But I also wouldn't be surprised if this has to do with the Banshee.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
You would not, but I would not be surprised to see this having something to do with the Banshee.
See, there's so many ways that it could go, and leaving the episode title as vague as it is makes it even more suspenseful.
It's just cruel.
I'm treating this like an anime you can't keep your eyes off of. Thank you, America.
That's yeah.
It's gonna go so well. And another thing that I do want to point out is the fact that I have planned out the episode titles, so that way y'all can get a little bit of a lore piece that may or may not be relevant now or later on.
Right.
And it actually makes a short letter, episodes 2 through 5. I hate what you stand for. Unbroken dreams. Once born, never forgotten. A daughter's wish. And of course, signed, redacted. So, just a little bit of a reminder.
Oh, is that actually what the next episodes, or what that episode was called? Or
no,
is
so
it the next one?
No,
what
so
is signed redacted? Is it like teasing us about the next one?
That's like a lore piece.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought that was like you telling us that you were gonna put the like something in there and then baited us and put that in there instead.
No. And what actually makes this even more incredible is as soon as y'all get through episode 6, there's actually going to be an update to the background lore section. So y'all already have timeline information of Era 1, but y'all still need Era 2, 3, and the Forgotten Era. So
right.
We definitely have a lot to dive into, but because of how fast actually y'all are progressing through, it's given me an opportunity to kind of like, okay, let's set up, like, let's give them a little bit more. And if I'm being fully honest, this is probably the most involved I've been with a campaign, I don't think I've been to the extent of which I'm revealing lore information, at least in this format, compared to FSOD or Hero's Wish.
Hmm.
So, and what I will say, and what I will reveal, as soon as this campaign ends, because I'm sure y'all want to see the behind the scenes of how I format my notes,
100%.
I've already transcribed every single note that I have in my notebook, and I've put it into a private server that I'm updating every single day.
So I was just gonna ask you about that. Like, how many more campaigns do you have planned currently, like that fit into this universe that like are going to happen? I know you have one that's happening in a couple months, right? That's taking place in the same universe.
Couple months? No. Um, not a couple months. Actually, that brings up a good point. So, you know the group where, like, they're going through, like, the alternate universe?
Yeah.
They actually finished theirs 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Mm.
And what I will say, because I don't want to divulge too much, I don't think I've ever heard that much regret in a collective voice of the group when they found out what exactly they did. And the thing is,
Mm.
the outcome of that campaign has drastically changed the outcome of this one for the final
Great.
episodes.
That sounds bad.
It's cathartic. It's rejuvenating. But I will say it's going to be one of the most emotional projects that when it is reaching its final moments, I am going to cry about it. I can
Do you have an end in sight though, or is this something that you're going to do that you're going to keep going for years from now?
Not for years. If I'm being completely honest, there's only 2 campaigns left within this
Oh.
series. So actually, now that I think about it, we are actually now closer. Actually, yeah. So Scorch, Robert, Izzy,
Mhm.
as of next Friday, we are now closer to the end of this series than when we were when I started this years ago.
My God.
It's become that intense. And it's also very bittersweet now that I actually have said that to all of you because
Mhm.
the series is going to eventually come to its end. I already know that.
Oh yeah.
And to, and you already know, like, y'all are, I'm pretty sure y'all are familiar with, like, the Marvel movies and, like, the established timeline of, like, how
We're coming up with yeah.
Yeah.
So we're rapidly approaching. Is this campaign the Infinity War?
No,
Okay.
but what I will say is that this campaign is going to be the most significant one. I think if I had to put on level of importance, it's definitely up there with episode D. It could potentially be even higher, should some choices play out according to
Right.
some
Yeah.
predictions. Because this could mean an entire plane shift. This could mean people coming back from all the way in the first campaign.
Wow.
And I'm kid you not, I've actually tested out. I've actually tested out what it's like to DM with up to 22 people.
Jesus.
That is how important the final moments of the series is going to come to. So
Wow.
there actually is an opportunity, Scorch and Robert, for you to actually meet some of the people that I've played with, even from the alternate universe group,
I
should
would
things
love
play
that.
out. So we'll see.
From the A.
We all
universe?
come back
Wow.
in like a big like Avengers Assemble moment.
Be like,
Well,
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
remember something on a smaller scale from that has already happened in universe
yeah,
with the Minutemen trilogy.
yep.
That was chaos.
Now think about that with 22 people being DM'd at once.
I mean, we were
Oh
close to
God.
that. What did
Initiatives
we
are a
have? We
fucking
had
nightmare.
I think we had 13, 15 people.
I think we
That
had
sounds terrible too.
we had I think it was 15 characters.
15 characters, but more people than characters.
It was because I had 2, Liam had
Oh,
2,
yeah.
um, Austin had 2, Eric had 2. Did Sean have 2?
Sean had 1. He was thinking
Sean had
about
one. Oh,
putting in a second.
technically Liam had 3.
Yeah.
So I've thought about like doing like if I had multiple characters in a campaign. It seems really fun.
It's
Yeah.
fun. It's just you're gonna have to do like efficient management with both of them.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
It's interesting because from my perspective, it's not a linear scaling. It's almost like an exponential scaling. Like you would think, oh, if I have 2 characters, I have 2 times the work.
Right.
If I have 3 characters, I have 3 times the work. It's really not. I'm pretty sure I only had 2 in the campaign. But I'm pretty sure from like Liam's perspective, where he had 2 physical bodies but 3 personalities, because one of his characters was trapped in a soul gem. That was like going from three characters. That was probably like 4 or 5 times the amount of work he had to do, keeping the different personalities separate from each other, remembering who knows what. Especially since 2 of them came from one campaign and one of them came from a completely different campaign, so their knowledge is all separated.
Right.
So remembering
That
who
note-taking
knows
must have been
what.
a nightmare.
And this was an in-person campaign, and Liam
He's got
didn't
3
take
notebooks.
he didn't really take notes. He had his character sheets, and he would
God.
make a few notes here and there, but that's just the type of person Liam is. He can keep it all separated. But as for me, my 2 characters were twins, so they were never apart, so they both knew everything. If one person knew it, the other one knew it.
Oh my god, I just had an
90%
incredible idea
of the
for a
time.
character. Conjoined twins, but they're both barbarians. One of them is active while they're raging, the other one's active, not raging.
Oh, that gave me flashback to a
Oh.
Hero of the Storms character.
No, but literally
God.
it's Sakon
Oh,
and
yeah.
Ukon from Naruto.
Oh
my god, that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
There's so much to unravel, but let's do a little bit of an immersion break actually here for a second. So let's go back to the numbers that y'all rolled. So we had a 12, 15, 76 from Scorch, and then a 6, 9, 94 from Robert.
619.
Sorry, 6, 19, 94. Sorry.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
what I want you to do right now, because this is actually a little bit of a moment in time that I'd like to call unlockables.
Okay.
So, I've thought about doing this for a while, but the campaign is important, but so is this podcast, because it gives a break from the game so that way y'all can hear us as just the players, or as just the people that are playing the game. And we love talking about D&D, but what we also like discussing is how it's a great experience for all of us. And with moments like this, you can't help but give a little piece of yourself to whenever you do a game. And when you have created a story and you've contributed to a story that's this memorable, it's also important that we highlight the smaller details, such as this podcast. And so I want the 2 of you to pick a trio of numbers from the number bank. A trio of numbers from this number bank. So keep that in mind. 12, 15, 76. 6, 19, 94. I want each of you to give me those 3 numbers of your choosing. And and what's important about this is that if you choose the trio of numbers that I have chosen for myself, I will give you a piece of information that is going to only be exclusively given in the podcast that I would have never given you when the moment came, unless you rolled something real lucky in the Emerald Quill. So that's why.
Write those numbers down for me.
Okay, so we have, and I'll actually go in order from like smallest number to biggest number.
Okay, hang on. Grab paper.
Yep. So the numbers that are chosen were 6, 12, 15, 19, 76, and 94. I have chosen 3 numbers from this already. So if you're able to figure out the exact order and the numbers, then I will give you a piece of critical lore that can only be given in this podcast. If y'all get it wrong, that's fine. You'll figure it out in the podcast eventually. But this will actually be an opportunity for you to actually reveal some key information. Now, obviously, we're not going to metagame and introduce that information into the campaign. I trust y'all, but that Scorch.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, but it is something that I do want to kind of introduce as a little bit of a teaser. Scorch, I'm going to start with you.
15, 76, 94.
Robert, your turn.
See, I've known you for a while, so I'm looking at these numbers and I'm trying to decipher exactly what numbers I think you would have chosen.
See, Scorch, you said 15, 76,
76
and 94.
and 94. I just picked numbers.
Got it?
Tell me why Izzy just put in chat one of the trios I was thinking. 6, 12, 94 is one of them that I was thinking.
Okay.
Since Izzy's
This is
taken
really
that
hard.
one. All right.
There's what? There's like.
There's a lot of combinations that are possible. I'll go.
There's 720 combinations.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very surprised.
Six, 12, 19.
Are you all locking in? Okay, so you said 6, 12, 19?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you two, or I guess I should say, should you
I'm
three locking in those answers?
I'm locked in.
I guess so.
So Izzy's, yours will not count. I got some bad news for you two. I'm gonna need one of you. I'm gonna need one of you to roll me a D4.
Oh my God. I'll do it.
All right.
Okay.
3.
We both rolled the same thing, so it didn't even matter that we went with your roll.
Okay. Here's the good news.
Okay.
Robert. Scorch figured out the combination I was thinking of.
Wow. Wow. Okay. He just picked random numbers, and see, I'm sitting here looking at the numbers, like, what numbers would have meaning
I need to try and middle it out a little, and there was no middling out possible.
Scorch, good on you for figuring that out. Let's go.
And thwart.
And so the reason why I rolled you the D4 was to determine what piece of information I was going to reveal.
Oh God.
here are the pieces of information you could have known.
Mm.
The one would have determined if the Emily that you were with when you initially met was the real Emily or not.
Oh.
Two, whether or not Gunther actually survived the explosion or not.
Mhm.
And four, if Donovan Damien was a double agent for another group besides the Resistance. But you have chosen three, which is going to be the most impactful, and it's going to be the shortest time, because now you're gonna know whether or not the episode 6 is going to be about Kiva or Alvarez.
Let's go!
To close out this
I think
episode,
this is the best outcome of information I could have gotten.
The
honestly. As a player, I think that's the best thing I could have gotten.
to close out, and that's how we're going to close out the episode, because as much as I love rolling for mundane task, I also wanted to do something that's a little bit more theatric, and I'm glad that y'all at the very least participated and enjoyed it. I hope.
Oh yeah.
But I do want to take the time to say thank you very much for having y'all here. Of course, this is one of like the newer formats that we were trying to do, and the newer format was honestly having like a smaller group. Like, I love the conversationalist style when it was just us immediately after campaign. But the thing about this that I enjoy, we have had our time to simmer down and to think about our thoughts instead of just
100%.
And I think that's a lot. I think that's actually a lot better for conversation.
Definitely.
Like, don't get me wrong. I love chatting and bantering afterwards, but I feel like it can get chaotic, and we can lose sight of the structure. So that way, we can actually have more.
I definitely know the last one I was there for. We definitely lost all structure.
Yes.
Everyone talking over each other. We got to the end, and we were like, "Wait, we're still recording? Shoot!"
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
What?
It was chaotic, but
So,
I want to know, like, do you enjoy this format for those that are here?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I will definitely keep that in mind, and I will do something similar like that next week. Actually, yeah, next week, before we get into Community Night, I think what I'm gonna do is do the podcast episode, and then we get into Community Night. So that way, we still have that time on Saturday, at the very least.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, it's a great time for us to simmer down thoughts, so that way we could be a bit more cohesive with it, and I definitely look forward to it. And of course, thank you to everyone that's gonna listen to these. I know the first episode that's gonna be uploaded, like, literally immediately after I upload the other two, is going to be pretty chaotic, and then you just go to this, and it's a bit more coherent. It's because we had to do a bit of a paradigm shift, and it seems to be working, so take it what you may. But thank you all for tuning in as always, and I look forward to meet you all in the next podcast. And with that, I will leave you with this final detail. It is going to be talking about Kiva's backstory.
Yeah, I kind of figured as much.
Yep, you're going to talk about Kiva's backstory and how Kiva's father meets a bit more to the eye than what a lot chose to believe. And I will say this. Part of Shadow's theory is true.
Okay.
But Scorch, remind me again what your theory about Kiva is. About Kiva, involving Kiva, sorry.
I don't really
if
have
you
a
had
theory
if you
involving Kiva.
Oh, okay. Because I remember Shadow saying like
I know what her theory is,
yeah. Could you like reiterate for those that, because I don't think we reiterate too much about.
I am missing a lot to this, but I believe Shadow's theory is that she thinks that Manchester is in fact her original creator.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think it has something to do with the lab, or as well, but essentially that Manchester is her original creator, and that he was with the doll makers when she was created, and he like turned on them for some reason. I think she thinks it has something to do with his wife and daughter, and they killed him for it. But in knowing that they would come for him, he, being the person he was to be able to make Kiva, did whatever he had to maintain his soul if he and to reanimate himself. But that cost him his memories, maybe. I think that's what her theory is. I could be very mistaken.
So what I'm gonna say is that Manchester has no relation to the creator.
Okay.
Wow.
I didn't think so. It really didn't seem like it.
But unfortunately, he had a job to do.
Who Manchester did. Or her creator. Who's the he you're talking about?
Manchester.
Okay.
Because, for a man of his stature, he's quite befitting as a mercenary.
Okay.
And when a mercenary has developed a sense of empathy, they are deemed worthless.
A what?
When a mercenary gains a sense of empathy, they are deemed worthless.
Right.
He had a job, and he took care of that job. Definitely made a lot of good money for the for the group that you're fighting for. Scorch,
Yeah.
give me a little bit of a recap again of Druken's backstory.
Oh Lord. Druken grew up with his dad in their general store. Not like a dingy place, but nothing super extravagant. Really simple. Grew up with his human father, just like learning magic secondhand from him.
Stop. What father?
His human father.
I'll leave it right there. All right, and that
Oh.
concludes.
You can't tell me my dad's dead.
And that is where we're going to conclude the podcast episode. If you want to find out more, but you're kind of curious about what happened before, go ahead and make sure you check out the other episodes of the campaign, and don't forget to check out the other episode of the podcast. And I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.